Hello everybody. So today's video is a real interesting video, and it's going to have you real interested because we are going to be talking about, as you can tell by the title, key reform movements, hashtag the fight for equality. Because in reform movements, it was meant to kind of, help us as women. There's just so many different movements, but the main movement, which is personally my favorite, is women's rights movement. But that will be discussed in the next part of the video. This is just a little introduction of the video and to give you guys kind of what you're ready to learn about in today's video. So further notice, there are so many reform movements to talk about. And when I say there are so many reform movements, there are literally so many reform movements. Like, just take a look. So as you guys can see, there is so many reform movements to talk about. And in today's particular video, me and my other people that's going to be in this video with me today, we are going to be discussing the movements that we decided to pick individually that we felt were the most important to us. So for me today, I will be discussing the labor movement, while we're going to have Malia, which she's going to be discussing and giving y'all a nice little in look on the temperance movement. And then we're going to move into Deja, which she's going to really show y'all the depths and to get y'all to understand about what really happened in the women's rights movement. Okay? So just sit back and let's go into the temperance movement.
The temperance movement of the early 19th century is a chapter in America's history that sought to reduce alcohol consumption but also reflected broader society concerns, including moral and social reforms, public health, and the role of government in regulating personal behavior. To give you a bit more context, I'm going to talk about some of the deeper implications it had on society. In the early 1800s, the United States was marked by significant changes. The nation was experiencing the effects of the Industrial Revolution, urbanization, and a wave of immigration. These changes brought new challenges, including rising rates of alcohol consumption. Alcohol was not only a social lubricant, but also a coping mechanism for people who were dealing with the stress of a rapidly changing world. Unfortunately, this led to more social problems, including domestic violence, poverty, and crime. In response, the temperance movement became a powerful force. It began in the 1820s, fueled by religious groups, mainly the Protestant churches, who viewed alcohol consumption as a weakness of character. They believed that sobriety was essential for personal salvation and societal improvements. The movement gained momentum quickly, leading to the formation of several organizations, such as the Temperance Society in 1826. The American Temperance Society sought to educate the public about dangers of alcohol. One important figure during this movement was Lyman Beecher, a prominent minister who passionately argued against the consumption of alcohol. He believed that alcohol was a poison that threatened the fabric of society. His writings inspired many to join the cause, emphasizing that temperance could lead to a healthier and more productive society. As the movement grew, it evolved from promoting moderation to advocating for a total abstinence from alcohol. This shift culminated in the formation of the Prohibit movement in the late 19th and early 20th century. The goal was not to just reduce alcohol, but to eliminate it entirely from society. The temperance movement intersected with other social movements, such as women's rights and labor movements. Women specifically played a crucial role in the fight for temperance. Organizations like the Women's Christian Temperance Union, founded in 1874, highlighted the devastating impacts of alcohol on families and advocated for legislative changes. Women recognized that alcohol often led to domestic violence and financial ruin. They fought passionately for their rights to protect their homes and children. However, the movement faced significant opposites. Many immigrants viewed the temperance as an attack on their cultural practices, where alcohol played a central role in social gatherings. Despite these challenges, the temperance movement laid the groundwork for significant social changes. It raised awareness about the dangers of alcohol and contributed to the eventual passage of the 18th Amendment in 1920. Although Prohibition was later repealed in 1933, the legacy of the temperance movement remained. The temperance movement was much more than an attempt to control alcohol consumption. It set the stage for future debates about public health, social responsibility, and the role of the government in regulating personal choices. As we reflect on the history of the temperance movement, it is clear that social reform movements, whether they succeeded or fail, have the power to shape the public conversation and influence generations to come.
My name is Taylor Kids, and I will be discussing the labor movement for you guys today and giving you guys a deeper insight on that. So, the labor movement is a collective effort by workers to achieve better wages, working conditions, and rights in the workplace. So, let's kind of go backwards of why this is really important for the labor movement. So the labor movement first originated during the Industrial Revolution when factory workers were faced with long hours, low pace, and very unsafe environments, including for children too. But we're going to get into that. So the labor unions became the driving force of the movement in organizing workers to advocate for changes through strikes, negotiations, and political action. So, key achievements of the labor movement included the establishment of the 8-hour workday, child labor laws, and a workplace safety regulations. To kind of deeper go into that, during the labor movement, children were also forced to work, and they were forced to work as hard as grown adults. They were doing things that grown adults do. It was a complete different change. While, us kids today, if I, went back to when I was a child, I wasn't working. I wasn't having to worry about nothing. I was strictly waking up and playing with Barbie dolls. These kids had to get up and they had to work on dangerous machines, going home with bruises on their hands, their faces. But during that time, it was okay. So basically, this whole movement was to fight for fair treatment, job security, and equality for workers of older age and of the younger age. Okay, so the labor movement also was a very influential time where that it had also was able to create a national worldwide holiday for us Americans. When we hear Labor Day weekend, we hear the pools are opening up. We're ready to be sitting outside cooking burgers and hot dogs and just having a great time with our family. But we don't think about how we got to this part, how we were able to have a weekend where we can get off of work and just enjoy ourselves. We were able to get this weekend due to every black kid, every white kid, every black woman, black man, white man who had to sit there and work 12-hour shifts on a 7-day week every day, including children, child labor as well. This holiday is kind of overlooked because we just kind of think about it as a break, but we don't think about how they felt back then when all they wanted was a break. Literally a simple break. They had to work 24/7. They couldn't enjoy themselves while also working with minimum wage, not deserving enough amount of pay that they really deserve to be working. So for now on, I just want to say when it is Labor Day weekend, we need to start making tributes to those who fought, and we need to kind of just to be aware and to just notarize why we get to have this weekend off and the outlooks behind it.
When talking about women getting the right to vote, we usually focus on the 19th Amendment, but we focus too much on the constitutional history. We're missing a lot. Some historians refer to 30 years between 1890 and 1920 as the women's era because it was in that time that women started to have a greater economic and political opportunities. Women are also aided by legal changes like getting the right to own property, control their wages, and make contracts and wills. By the 1900s, almost 5 million women worked for wages, mainly in domestic service or light manufacturing like garment manufacturing. Women in America are always vital contributors to the economy by producers and consumers. They always worked, whether for wages or taking care of children and the homes. Women were also active as reformers. And those said reform movements brought women into state and national politics before the dawn of the progressive era. Unfortunately, their greatest achievement, prohibition, was also our greatest national shame. Well, at least not our top 5 national shames. But probably women's greatest influence indeed came through membership and leadership in women's Christian temperance movement. The WCTU was founded in 1874, and by 1890, it had over 150,000 members, making it the largest female organization in the United States. Under the leadership of France Willard, the WCTU embraced a broad reform agenda, including pushing for the right for women to vote, to drink, and to do that, it would be very helpful if women could vote. In 1895, Willard boldly declared a wider freedom is coming to the women of America. Too long, in quotes, too long has it been held that women has no right to enter these movements. Politics is a place for women, but the role of women in politics did greatly expand during the progressive era. As in prior decades, many reformers were middle and upper class women, but the growing economy and the expansion of what might be called the upper class meant that there were more educational opportunities, and this growing group of college-educated women leaned in. And became the leaders of the new movements. Next, we're going to talk about Florence Kelley, a college-educated woman who, after participating in a number of progressive reform causes, came to head the National Consumers League. The league sponsored boycotts and shaped consumption patterns, encouraging consumers to buy products that were made without child, or what we now would call sweatshop labor, which at that time was often known as labor. There was also a subtle shift in gender roles as more and more women worked outside. African American women continued to work primarily as domestic servants or in agriculture. And immigrant women mostly did low-paying factory labor, but for native-born white women, there were more new opportunities, especially in office work. And this points to how technology created opportunities for women. Almost all the telephone operators in the U.S. were women. By 1920, office workers and telephone operators made 25% of the female workforce, while domestic servants were only 15. A union leader named Abraham Bissonnette remarked that working gave immigrant women a sense of independence. They acquired the right to personality, something alien to the highly patriarchal family structures of the old country.
Hello everyone, my name is Wisdom Sims. This is my YouTube video. So it started off in 1776 as Americans declared independence from Great Britain. The struggle for liberty and freedom began to shape the future of the United States. But as many fought for freedom, two critical groups, enslaved people and women, were left questioning who truly was free in the new American Republic. So my first segment is the Revolution and the Promise of Liberty. So the American Revolution declared liberty as a central goal, with the famous words of the Declaration of Independence stating that all men are created equal, endowed with the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. But these ideals, while revolutionary, did not extend to all Americans. Instead, they promoted a deep contradiction, one that would fuel the fight for freedom for many marginalized groups, including enslaved people and women. So my second segment is enslaved people and the promise of freedom. While the Continental Army fought to secure liberty from Britain, enslaved people saw the revolution as an opportunity to claim their own freedom. Both the British and American sides made promises to enslaved people, offering freedom in exchange for military service. And a primary source for that would be in 1775, Lord Dunmore, the British governor of Virginia, issued a proclamation which offered freedom to enslaved men who joined the British Army. On the British side, Lord Dunmore's proclamation encouraged enslaved people to fight for the British Army, promising them freedom if they joined the cause. Thousands of enslaved people in the South seized this opportunity, seeing it as a chance to escape slavery. On the American side, George Washington hesitated to arm enslaved people, but eventually allowed African Americans to join the army. The promise of freedom was not guaranteed, but many saw it as their path to a better life, and some were granted their freedom after serving. My third segment is women in the Revolutionary era. While enslaved people fought for freedom, women too played a significant role in the revolution. Although they were excluded from formal political power, women contributed to the war efforts in numerous ways, through boycotts, fundraising, and even serving directly in battle, a belt under disguised identities. A primary source for that would be in her letter to John Adams in 1776, Abigail Adams urged her husband to remember the ladies and warned that women would not continue to obey men without rights. So Abigail Adams, wife of John Adams, wrote to her husband urging him to consider women's rights in the new government. Though her plea was ignored, it sparked the early calls for women's equality in the new nation. So some women took action by disguising themselves as men to serve in the military. One such woman, named Deborah Sampson, enlisted in the Continental Army and fought for over a year before her secret was discovered. Sampson's stories exemplifies how women sought to transcend social boundaries to contribute to the revolution. So my fourth segment is Republican motherhood and the changing of roles with women. While women were excluded from direct political involvement, the revolution did result in an ideological shift that redefines women's roles. The concept of Republican motherhood emerged,